I am so stoked to add these two helmets to my Zeo collection because I didn't have to wait years for it. I used to feel so helpless when it comes to getting something like this because you need to commission a prop maker and they love to undercode the time that they need. Usually 3 to 4 months, which sounds great, right? But it's just to make you pay the deposit and you need to be mentally prepared to wait for years. So the other alternative is to learn how to make them myself, which used to be unbelievably complicated until now. I'm Zeo and today I want to talk about what it's like to make helmets in the past and how much technology has changed the process that made me say, yeah, I can make two at the same time. And of course, I will show you my process as well. Helmet making used to be a very tedious manual labor, especially if it's your own sculpt. You will need to start with a base shape, probably an oval, then slowly build on it with clay, carve them off and sand them. Do note that you do not have the luxury of symmetry, so you have to work on both sides individually while trying to match them, which is possible with years of practice. But that's not all. After the sculpting is done, you cannot simply paint on the clay itself because it is not a durable material to work with. So you need to make a mold of the helmet with silicone. Mold making is another messy, tedious chore. It takes days and a lot of materials to complete. You need to apply layers of silicone onto your helmet with different thickness in between each layers, which takes hours to cure individually. And when that is done, you need to make a mother shell to help the silicone keep its shape, which in itself is yet another process to learn. Basically, you apply registration keys, fiberglass cloth and fiberglass resin to create this shell that holds the mold. And when you have both sides of the shell done, you can finally pour resin in, rotate it several times to build up the thickness to produce a nice copy of the helmet. And only then can you start working on the helmet and prep it for painting. Which is crazy, right? How much you needed to do before reaching this stage? Well, now with digital sculpting and 3D printing, you can skip a huge chunk of it and do everything at the comfort of your own home. Because I sculpted these on my computer and sent them to JLC3DP printing service, and the prints arrived at my doorstep hassle-free. Of course, the sculpting portion you still need to do, but now digitally. I bought the base helmets online, but they're not very accurate, so I had to make some changes according to the screen-accurate helmets featured on the Heritage Auction website. This is what happens when you have no money to bid. You have to make them yourself. The model looks really off, so I decided to make the chin narrower, sharpen the details like the lines along the visor. Basically, it was a lot of subtle adjustments, which is so much easier to do digitally. The yellow one was also inaccurate, so I had to move the visor up, which I don't know how you go about doing that with clay. Like, how do you move things up and down? Bottom portion was too narrow, so I had to reconstruct that part altogether, resharpen the details again and deepen some parts. But I could do them symmetrically without getting my hands dirty, so I saved a lot of time. This is what it looked like after the modifications. Still not 100% accurate, but I'm happy with the changes. So, digital sculpting has kind of replaced traditional clay sculpting and made it a little bit more accessible to people like myself. But is 3D printing really any less messier than mold making? Not really. If you are doing FDM printing, once it's done, you remove the support, you gotta deal with a shit ton of sanding. Fill a primer and sanding again. It's so crazy, as you can see from Stickosaurus's videos. He is so dedicated, I would have given up a long time ago. That is why I do resin printing. But that also means you gotta deal with resin, alcohol, tons of cleaning, a whole other bunch of post-processing, and it's as messy as mold making. The only way to avoid all of this drama is JLC3DP, a 3D printing service that I've been using, and it is super affordable when you choose the cheapest resin, which is the 9600 resin, which cuts down the cost from $50 to $35 for the front of the helmet. And it's what, $25 for the back? So $60 for a full helmet print. And if we count shipping for 2 helmets, it's like 40 bucks. So adding that in, it's 80 bucks for a full helmet without any of the hassle. I would totally do it again. It's a no-brainer for myself. But if you are interested, click the link in the description for $70 worth of new coupons for new users. Alright, if you hate sanding, the only way out is JLC3DP because they even provide sanding services. It's not perfect, but you could barely tell the flaws after priming it. The main areas you need to focus on will be the curves and the edges, but it's already a lot less work than before. I like to go over it with a 150 grit to flatten off the remaining lines, then a 320 to get rid of the scratches done by the 150 and smooth things out entirely. And because we printed the two halves separately, warping along the straight edges is bound to happen, so there are small gaps that we have to deal with. I like to line the front half with tape and Vaseline, then fill up the gaps with UV clay. And once it's out of the UV light oven, we just need to sand it smooth and the gaps will be gone. Another reason why I chose to make helmets now is the visor. Now that I own a vacuum former from the QQ3D, making these barber visors with specific curves is a lot easier, but not without its challenges. I tried forming all 3 parts at the same time to save plastic, cheapskate, and they failed. In fact, they were so hot that my prints started to bend because I printed them too thin. Cheapskate. I think I'm supposed to make a bark, meaning filling the entire bottom with clay or something so that it retains the shape, but I didn't. I just kept trying, and this time I tried 2 prints vertically and it came out quite alright. There is still some warping, but I feel like I can maybe work with it. The pink visor on the other hand was fully flattened. As you can see from the full suction of the former, it is quite crazy to witness, but hopefully they still fit the helmet. Alright, painting is not hard, it just requires some practice. Like for the black lines, if you know you're not good at it, don't try to do it freehand. Just admit defeat and do it the easy way with black paint and masking tape around the visor. It is important to really squish the tape with a tool to make sure it's sticking, otherwise other paints might leak in. And even now, I'm still learning because I'm not sure what happened with the spray can, but it just started to squirt droplets onto the pink helmet and it's really frustrating. I've already cleaned the nozzle and it still happened, so maybe the paint is running low or something? Anyway, from previous experiences, I know I needed to let them dry for a day before masking. So the next day, I sanded the pink to smooth out some of the problematic parts, then proceeded to mask them both. After that, it's quite easy, it's just their individual colors, yellow and pink. Then we can remove the masking one layer at a time to reveal the beautiful, beautiful colors. I did have to do a little bit touch up for the blacks for the rounded edges, and I simply used a black marker. But other than that, I think the masking was quite successful. Moving on to something that I was really nervous and excited about, the 2K clear gloss that I heard a lot of good things about, but it requires an activating agent, which means that it's going to dry up in a couple of hours and you have to use them all. That is why I kept it for this project when I have 3 helmets to gloss. Yep, I glossed my red because the 1K clear I used wasn't glossy enough, and this 2K clear gloss on the other hand is really, really glossy. And I tried my best to coat the entire helmet 2 to 3 times. Lastly, we can install the visor. Lucky for us, even though they are warped, the surface area is the same, so we could kind of brute force our way onto the helmet with some blue tack, and they fit really well. I just painted them with some translucent black from the inside, reapplied them on the helmet with blue tack because I don't like glue. One wrong step and it will ruin your paint job, so no thank you. And hot glue is also too hot and might warp the visor, so I'm sticking with blue tack. And that's it!
Welcome to the world of ZW. From digital to physical, props pop true. Holding toys from Shired lore, this is awesome. Can't wait to make more.
Finally, we have 2 more additions to the Zeo helmet collection, and I hope you learned something today, or maybe get inspired to start making helmets. The next Zeo video, I don't know when, but I will probably focus more on the sculpting aspect and on how to prepare the helmets digitally for magnets and all that. If you reached this far, you are a champ. Thank you for watching me for me, and I look forward to making more things that I like in the future.
Welcome to the world of Zeo. From digital to physical, props pop true. Holding passion